It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I will be your host this morning. Appreciate you riding with us today. You're catching us live on our website at americasvoicenow.org. That's great news. Glad to have you. If you're listening to us on Patriot FB, welcome to the crew. And if you are catching us on an alternative system or perhaps on our Spreaker podcasting service or even on Big Country 99 Rooster Radio, we're glad to have you. For Rooster, this is a pre-recorded broadcast. So, I'm reminded constantly of how much voter fraud we see in every election. And I'm concerned because here we are coming up on 2014. And, we've seen it in 2008, we saw it in 2010, and we saw it in 2012. And there is no doubt that we will see it in 2014. The amount of voter fraud is just, incomprehensible. And I don't think that the idea that we can expect it to not occur, especially with so much contention for so many Senate seats this coming election, I think we'd be foolish to believe that it's not going to happen again. Recently, there was a Cincinnati poll worker who was given a 5-year sentence for voter fraud in the Obama election. Now, this woman was charged with repeatedly violating and voting illegally over 3 different elections. And she was a poll worker, and she was using other people's names. She was given a 5-year sentence for that. I don't know what the outcome of that was, whether she served it or is serving it or whatever. But, there are so many examples of it. And there are those who will be out there saying, oh, come on, you're wearing a tinfoil hat. And listen, the likelihood that there's any reality to the argument that Obama won 100% of the precincts in, dozens and dozens and dozens of precincts around the country is, statistically speaking, the odds are so astronomical that you have a better chance of winning lottery twice in the same day than you do of seeing that kind of 100% voting for one candidate. In fact, Kim Jong-un from the North Korea just recently won re-election with 100% of the vote. And that's not surprising because, well, if you don't vote for him, you die. And while I'm not saying our situation is quite that dire yet, and I do use the phrase yet, I don't think there's any belief in anyone's mind on either side of the ideological fence. Now, there's plenty who will argue against it and try to ignore the evidence, but there's plenty of evidence out there that is, in fact, the case. This morning I found an article that was kind of telling. There was a woman found in Detroit the other day. Actually, Pontiac or Detroit's right out. They're right next to each other, or very close. And this woman had died in her home back in 2008. And they just found her. Her home was finally foreclosed on. She was a businesswoman and apparently was having her payments drawn straight out of her bank and so forth and so on. In fact, the electricity was still on. How amazing is that, right? It's 5 years later, folks. And she was seated in the back seat of her Jeep, and the ignition was off, so it doesn't look like, she was carbon monoxide or suicide or something like that. They don't really know what the deal is. But what's amazing about it is that she was found to have voted in the 2010 gubernatorial elections. Now, this isn't the first time that we've seen dead people voting. And I'm reminded essentially of the argument that, or the television show, The Walking Dead, because over and over and over again, we see these incidents where dead people are voting. And, I mean, not just dead people, but anyone who is a registered voter. And, of course, the argument, as soon as you lay out the argument that you have to show voter ID, because right now you can show just a utility bill or something, and in many precincts you don't have to show anything. And when you're sitting here telling me that there is no voter fraud, but you reject the concept of voter ID, then, I mean, clearly we have a problem. Now, the idea of voter ID is lambasted by those people who stand to gain from voter fraud, not surprisingly. And it's interesting, the NAACP is one example of that one organization that stands firmly against voter ID laws. And yet, the NAACP, in order to actually have a symposium on it, required you to bring ID. I mean, how ironic can that be? So, they won't let you in the door of their facility where they're holding an event without voter ID, or at least without ID, period. And yet they want you to be able to vote. I mean, see, the problem that we have at this stage in the game is that the country is so fractured, and we're going to talk about this in our fourth segment, because there's an article out this morning about how the FCC is targeting black conservatives or a black conservative in a TV station fight. And what we see is time and time and time again how the issue of race is used as a weapon. And of course, the Democratic Party has a 90 percentile election result with the black population. And they use the black minorities as a pawn in America. I mean, there's no denying the fact that they have or are used as a pawn. And the truth is that when we look at these states that did vote for Obama as a result of a study that recently came out, the 5 states that had the top income inequality, which is his latest rage, right? We've got to end income inequality and all that. But the states that had the highest levels of income inequality all voted for Obama, including Washington, D.C., by the way. Now, I got a challenge, and I understand the pushback I'm going to get on this, because people are going to say, well, wait a minute, you're a white dude. What do you know about black issues? Well, I get it. I understand. I'm white, and I can't possibly know anything about black issues. But I can tell you this. It's clear to anyone who's intellectually honest and looks at the evidence that's out there that the black population in this country is being used as a miniature army, if you will. They are the cannon fodder of the Democratic Party, used to fight their battles and discarded. They use your money. You donate to campaigns. Your $50, your $200, money that's coming off of your food bill, because you're seeking to find someone who's going to represent you. And I understand that. But I got to tell you, the truth is that there's not a single Democratic policy that's working in your advantage. All of this nonsense about equality, income equality, is not going to be brought about by government. Government does not produce equality. Government can only produce inequality. Because, one, there's no way that you can, lay down a blanket policy that's going to create equality across the board for everyone anyway, number one. Number two, there are endemic problems culturally in our country why the black minority in this nation is suffering. And it's time that, one, they recognized it, and two, we acknowledge it. I know everybody wants to walk away from this issue and doesn't want to really touch it because it's like the third rail, right? I mean, you touch it, you immediately get electrocuted. But the truth is, by sitting here and not talking about it, by sitting here and pretending that it's not happening when we all know that it is, and we can see the results of it and we can see how it happens, we're actually really not representing the truth, and we're doing a disservice to those who would be benefited by its exposure. What do I mean when I say that? Well, look, all you got to do is take a look at a number of issues, and I don't care how you feel about abortion. It's not even material to the topic. But when you look at, and there's been a lot of studies coming out lately, in some states it's 50% of the 52%, I think it was in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, in Washington D.C. And I'm not quoting. Don't quote me on these numbers, but I just keep seeing these reports coming out. 70% of the abortions are minorities. The culture of the minorities in this country, especially in the urban areas. It's not so bad in the rural areas, but in the urban areas, the culture of misogyny, the culture of hooliganism or hoodlum is destructive. And I'm not saying this is exclusively limited to blacks, by the way. If you're a white guy and you got that stupid spider web tattoo, wiped down across your face, it's no wonder that you can't get a job. I mean, what the heck were you thinking? Doesn't mean black guys don't get them. It just means that they're not quite so visible. But the truth is, this whole culture that we have now, where you live a lifestyle that is outside the mainstream of what business has created in the country as a culture for industry, and then wondering why there's income inequality and why you can't get a fair shake, shouldn't be surprising to you. If you want to use language that is full of streetisms, if you want to use language and words that are not acceptable in public, if you want to call each other names and you want to reference or use that type of language when you're in an interview, I can assure you of one thing: you're not going to get a job. Now listen, I've been wealthy and I've been poor. Right now I'm poor. Wealthy is far better, there's no denying it. But I can tell you this: your language and how you present yourself in a public environment is all the difference between whether or not you are successful or you fail. And you may say, this isn't failure. I'm working on, becoming a music artist, or I'm working. Well, with all due respect, let me tell you something. There's a zillion white boys out there who want to be the next Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, too, and it ain't going to happen for them either. If you're destroying your life and you're carrying yourself in a way and you are portraying yourself in a way that is destructive of the strictures that have been set up by our society for normalized behavior, then you're going to fail. And it's no one's fault but your own. If you are so desperate for acceptance or so desperate to show that you are unique, that you're willing to, damage your body, put rings through your nose and all that nonsense, and these giant earlobes I see these stupid kids walking around with, you're not going to be able to walk in and get a job that's going to be able to, you're never going to be an executive in a corporation, even at a lower executive level, even at a managerial level. It is not going to happen. And I don't care whether you're white or you're black or you're Hispanic. You want to get a tattoo? That's fine. Get it in a place where nobody's going to see it. But, getting a spider web tattooed on your face or somebody's initials tattooed in your eyebrow is just absolutely stupid. No, it's not stupid that you want to paint your body that way, but you can do that when you're independently wealthy. Until then, refrain. I mean, this is just good common sense, folks. You don't need me to sit here and express to you why it's stupid to do that. Because you're going to walk in and apply for a job. And unless it's some kind of a job working in a warehouse somewhere where the public is never going to see you, you're not going to get it. And if you think at some point in time that you're going to be able to eventually become rich without a job, you've got two alternatives there: death or prison. Yeah, you can go sell dope. Yeah, you can hustle in the streets and, knock people around and steal money or steal goods or whatever. I mean, but that's not a life, and that's not income equality. You see, the problem is that what you're seeking is not something that the government can deliver to you. It's not even something that private industry can deliver to you. It's only something that you can deliver to you. You cannot achieve a balanced lifestyle in society if you're going to go around and have this radical, approach to everything. I just don't see it. I don't see it. And I don't think people in industry and business see it either. If you cannot speak articulately, then no one's going to hire you in a position in which you're going to have to, that you're public facing. No one's going to. If you cannot string together 5 coherent words into a sentence, you're not going to get the job. I'm telling you right now. I've hired people. I've fired people. And I'm telling you, I don't care what your other deal is, if you cannot articulate who you are and what you are and why you want that job, and do it in a framework which I feel confident that is going to represent the company that I'm hiring you to work for, you're not getting the job. I don't care what your color is. The truth is that everyone expects the world to bend to their particular bent or slant. And that's not how it works. If you want to be respected, then earn it. And the way you're going to earn it is not by, strolling around with your pants hanging down around the bottom of your butt. You're not going to earn it by walking around with spider tattoos on your face. You're not going to earn it by walking around with an earring in there that's the size of your grandmother's coat button. I mean, that's just insane. You're not going to earn it by not being able to have a discussion where the N-word doesn't come up, ending in an A. You can't do that. And I don't care if you're white or black, I hear both use it. You can't slouch. You can't, have some, you have to dress appropriately. You have to have a shirt that actually buttons down the front, okay? You can voter fraud your way through election after election after election, America. And I'm talking to the 50% of America that's sitting at home getting food stamps. And I'm talking to the 50% of America that's sitting home saying, I can't find a job and I'm being oppressed because of the man. The truth of the matter is, you're just as much of the problem as the man. You're your own problem. And ultimately, you're our problem. You're ruining this nation just as fast as they are with their oppression of all of us. And it's not limited to you. Trust me, the NSA's spying on everybody. Not just blacks, not just Hispanics, not just the white boy who wants to walk around with an earring, a yo-yo stuck through his ear. But it's foolish. I'm not saying that you have to tread the road of conformity in every aspect of your life. But you at least have to be able to have a balanced playing field of intelligence, language, dress, and presentation. You have to be able to present yourself in a way that is going to express that you care about yourself, that you have some intelligence and some cognizance of the situation around you. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk. The three other remaining topics today are Hillary Clinton was. There's an article out there this morning about how she received fraudulent campaign donations. She got illicit campaigns funds, and this is back in 2008. And of course, she tries to separate her and separate herself from that, but there's none of that happening. That she's caught red-handed, frankly. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Also, in our third segment, we're going to drop this bombshell on America, and that is that the Ukraine, in an agreement with the United States and the West, including the EU, years ago gave up their nuclear weapons after their separation from Russia as a satellite nation. And they did so at our insistence, based on a promise that we would not allow to happen exactly what's happening. And that is Russia has invaded Ukraine. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about Ben Carson on guns and the FCC targeting black conservatives. So we'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll tackle these topics. Stick with us. You're listening to America's Voice right here, right now.